There's a mate of mine who lives in Hong Kong, and he's a very accomplished strength coach and a martial artist. And we talk via WhatsApp a few times a week, and it's kind of stream of consciousness stuff because we've been talking to each other for so long. We used to talk to each other on MSN Messenger. It's how long we've been talking to each other for. I think it's 14 years that me and him have been chatting online. We've met, like, trained together, and it's more eating than training, but like that's what happens when you're into strength training. You travel, you get there, and you're like, should you go to the gym? Yeah, let's eat first. And we have somebody wrote live from a sauna. It does look like a sauna. This is the office in the new house that I'm in. I absolutely love it here. I actually got 2,000 words written for the book yesterday, and imagine if I do that for 60 days, this book will be written in no time, he said optimistically. And we between us in this sort of stream of consciousness back and forth have developed ideas that are, some of them I've shared here on the channel. They're kind of like somewhere between psychology and spirituality, and they're a bit odd. He's from Hong Kong. Neither of us are Japanese, but we were both a little bit obsessed with Japanese martial culture. And, you know, he would think nothing of just saying to me, he goes to Japan quite a bit. He would think nothing of saying to me, I went to this shrine and I did this particular prayer for you. And our shorthand for that would just be like bong. And he would just say bong because we're just bonging the temple bell. But it's not serious. We're not doing it like, oh, this is really sincere. We just go bong, lol. Now, one of the things that back and forth, like he's younger than me, so he's always asked me, not all the time, but like every 4 or 5 months, so he'll ask me for advice, like life advice that's serious, and I'll do my best. And we were going back and forth on different subjects, and we started to get into this conversation about luck and chi. So chi is like your prana or your ki, your life force. And if you're in a state of bad chi, you actually have bad luck. And I've been telling him, he's a friend of mine from when I used to run the website Street Fight Secrets. Well, I still do run Street Fight Secrets, it still exists, which was all about self-protection and combatives and the psychology of self-protection. And this was based on my experiences growing up and the fact that I did 10 years in the security industry doing nightclub door work. Nobody knows that I used to work in Liverpool. I worked in London, Tenerife, and New Zealand doing that. So I'd like, unfortunately, due to my life, I have had more violent experiences and more violent encounters than most people would. But I always said it wasn't just because of nightclub security. It was because I attract it. And anybody who knows me will back that up. Anybody who's known me for like 10, 20 years will be like, if there's going to be trouble, it will happen when he's there. Many years ago, I was at my father's house. I'm sure that's the name of like an old Spanish novel from the 1950s, At My Father's House. Mi casa de mi padre. And a fight broke out outside. And I went out, and it was between kids, and I broke it up. And he said to me, in all the years I've lived here, that's never happened. But the one night that you are here and I'm not, it happens. And he said, that's weird. 3 weeks ago now, I was in Encinitas in Southern California, which is a pretty well-to-do middle to upper middle class area. It's a surf town, it's a service town, but they're pretty wealthy people there. And I'm in a hotel, expensive hotel. It's called the Surf Shack or something like that on Lucadia Boulevard. And a fight breaks out outside the hotel room at midnight. That's not normal, but it happens outside my hotel room. I have to call the sheriffs. Now in the UK, if you call the police, they'll be like, yeah, one car might come by in half an hour just to pick up the bits. Down in Southern California, I had 3 trucks there inside of like 4 minutes or so. I was still on the phone to the emergency operator, and these trucks pulled up. I was like, well, there you go. I would say my dogma has always been I don't believe in the law of attraction as it's been presented. There was a book called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain, was the pen name. I don't know what the real person, the person's name really is. That I thought was useful and interesting. When I was younger, I'd read the work of like stuff that claimed to be based on Rosicrucian prayer that was also kind of law of attraction or creative visualization based. And I'm not now going to reverse and say, no, actually I was wrong, this is real. But it would be disingenuous of me to maintain the rigid dogma that there's nothing to it. There's not nothing to it. And it's not just affirmation bias. It's not just easily explained away by the paradigms of normal Western objective, rational, scientific thought. It's not just explained away by that. God, this light is orange. I'm very orange, aren't I? This is going to be a very warm video. It's a warm video. In Buddhism, orange is the color of love and compassion, which is why the monks wear orange robes. I just got an email from somebody that I met at one of the seminars I did in California. She describes a series of very unsettling, very, not like deeply traumatic, but unsettling events where she is uprooted, she's away from home, she's having unpleasant conversations with family that, reading in between the lines, she'd rather not have. She's having to stay with family that sounds like she'd rather not stay with. And off the back of spending 10 days with members of her family that she doesn't want to stay with, she then got on a flight. And the flight was turbulent, so turbulent that they had to land at a different airport. Then a woman in the street who's, by the sounds of things, a little bit unhinged, grabs her by the arm. She's already not feeling good. And then an Uber driver latches onto her after the airport. She's driving home, it's getting on to midnight, and he's asking the creepy questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Do you know anybody in this town? Are you here alone? The answer to which, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, would be yes, I have a boyfriend. He is both a Navy SEAL and a UFC fighter. And he shits bullets. And his favorite thing to do is to break the arms of Uber drivers who are pushy. He won't kill you. He'll just snap your arm here, here, and here. He's done it before, and get really graphic in your description of how the arm just gets. Really unpleasant, really invasive, really boundary breaking. He insists on bringing luggage into the hotel, and then is like, I want to take it to your room. And I'm like, whoever was on reception failed in their duty there, because she had to then say no, and he insisted, and then she had to say no again. Whoever was on reception, I travel a lot and I'm big on like what hotels should and shouldn't do, failed in their duty. Like, it's not for your, now that you're inside, you saw the John Wick movie, The Rules, when you get inside the hotel. Now that that person is inside of your hotel and the security cameras are on, you can tell people who are harassing your client to fuck off, because they're on private property. They've no right to be there unless they've paid to be there. And even then, the management reserves the right of admission, he says, remembering the legalities from the security days when he used to do site security. So if you're on the front desk of a hotel and you see an Uber driver, a taxi driver, harassing a young girl and pushing her to go to the room, you can step in and go, all right, lad, I think you've delivered her now, so off you fuck. Otherwise, it's a police job, and you wouldn't like that very much, would you, mate? Nobody protected her. Nobody helped her. She had to do it herself. She's very upset, very tired. She was telling me she'd done the emotional literacy work and everything was going okay. She was doing different work that I told her to do and everything was going okay. And now this has really put her off. Something that seems to happen is like a cascading series of emotional flashbacks that lead to exhaustion would lead to a state of emotional dysregulation and of, disfigured chi, disfigured energy. And the cynics amongst you will say, well, predatory types can just see that she's tired and that her boundaries are down, and now they're latching onto her. And I would say, yes, 100% you're right. But I also think there's more to this as well. Bad chi, bad luck. Bad chi, bad luck. This started when I was a student when I was 18. I was studying psychology in Birmingham. You wouldn't believe the number of fights I got into. And I would swear up and down it wasn't me. But I was nuts. I was a nutter kid. You know, all of the CPTSD was just like focused. You know how people can get, how we can be. Just like focused on this one fucking thing. Because before that had been like Zen meditation, psychedelics, William S. Burroughs and Terence McKenna. Now it was martial arts. So my mind was on fight mode all the time. And I could walk through Birmingham and I guarantee there'd be a fight. But the fight would happen when my wisdom tooth was playing up and I was sore. I had a cold and a sore throat and I wasn't feeling good. One time I was carrying this huge bag of washing. The washing machine had broken in my place. I'd been to the gym every day. I was a kid and I let like a week's worth of washing build up for this huge hold all, like in Heat. You know, when in Heat they're running down the street in the Armani suits with the machine guns with the big bags of money. I was like with this thing stuck on my back. And some guy I'm passing through a bus station in Birmingham, somebody would start a fight with me. It would always be like that. And then when I was teaching the combatives, I would say, isn't it funny how it works like that? Like it would never happen. I've just come out of the gym. I'm in my fucking shorts, my trainers. I'm warmed up. I've just been sparring. I've just been rolling. I'm feeling good. And it's light out and I can see, I have high visibility and I'm fucking ready to go. There's nobody. It's not even like somebody comes up to me and goes, back in the day, this is how I used to talk. This is how I used to think about it. Like somebody looks up at me, thinks about it, makes an assessment and pisses off. They just wouldn't be there. These dark entities just wouldn't be present in the environment. There is something to the law of attraction because I've seen too much in my own life where you just go, I mean, Jung would call them synchronicities, and it's considered more polite and you sound more sane if you call it a synchronicity. But if you actually look what synchronicities are, you're in the realm of or that which is not yet encompassed by Western science, but which could be one day. I don't know, it might turn out to be simulation theory. So because we're in this fucking simulation, if you're operating at a certain level of thought, word, deed, belief, and emotion, that's what you create in the simulation because that's the rules of the game we're in. I don't know what it is, but something like this seems to be happening. That being said, if we at a philosophical level, because it could be explained psychologically up to a certain point, but I'm saying beyond. I'm putting myself out there and saying, no, I actually think something else is happening. I don't think it's the case, and it's evidently not the case, that you think a thing and then it just manifests. But I'm sure all of you, all the people watching this, have one or two stories where they thought a random, really unlikely thing and then it manifested. My favorite one from recent times was I was in California. It was a couple of years ago now. It wasn't my last trip to California, it was the time before. And I was not feeling good. I was feeling joyless. And I was like, I want to deal with this. So I was up in the morning, I was doing meditation, particularly focused on, you know, joy. What is joy? What is joylessness? What does it mean to be depressed? What does it mean when all the joy has gone out of your life? And I was sat there and I was breathing, and I must have had my mouth open breathing. And what do you call it? Fucking hell. A bird what flies really fast and drinks nectar out of plants, and its wings are really, really fast. Hummingbird, thank you. Tahiti, I think in Navajo, it's Tahiti, is a hummingbird. In Native American folklore, the hummingbird is the bringer of joy. Literally, it's the bringer of joy. There was a time in Native American folklore, there's different variations of this story across different tribal, it depends on the heritage of the tribe, and there's variations of the story. But get this, there was a time where humanity forgot. This is ancient. This is the Native Americans talking about an ancient time, like long ago. They said there was a time when humanity forgot to love nature, when humanity forgot to wake up in the morning and say, hello, Father, Son, and give appreciation to the sun, and to say good night to the moon, and to talk to the animals, and to talk to the woods. And they just forgot. They became selfish. They became envious. They became jealous and self-obsessed. And so the Great Spirit put a blanket over the whole world so that it was completely dark. So there was nothing that could be seen. And man and woman came together and said, what can we do? And they couldn't do anything about it. And the long and the short of the story is, different animals climbed on top of each other's backs, and the hummingbird was at the very, very top, and it flew up to the blackness and pecked its way through to bring the light back in, so the light could come back through. It was a boundary breaker in darkness to bring joy back into the environment. Could just be a coincidence, I guess, or something else is happening. Some other kind of communication is going on. This is, before I got this email, this is very much on my mind at the moment, because for a laugh, just as a joke, just for fun, I did some law of attraction type affirmations for a day and a half, really lazily, about 2 weeks ago. And something that was specific to what I was talking about showed up within 48 hours. And you say, okay, it's confirmation bias. You're now looking for the thing and you're making it happen. And I'm like, you not in this example, not in this example. No, you couldn't. It's not possible for you to do that. I don't want to get into a big argument over it. Like, some people think it's bullshit. Some people think it's real. I'm agnostic. I'm open to the idea that something like that is happening, but that right now it's not scientific, but that maybe one day it will be within the boundaries of science to say, if it's in your mind and it's emotionally charged, then some kind of interaction between individual consciousness and group consciousness and the external reality, maybe none of these boundaries are real and these are just words that we make up because we need to turn up at work at 9 o'clock with a pair of clean socks on. I don't know. These are all like fairly new boundaries, you know. Maybe we never thought like this before, or maybe it was just like obvious, like, of course, what it is that I'm feeling and focused on is going to manifest into some kind of reality of mine. On a harder-edged psychological point, look at it this way. Look at it this way, like to the modern Western approach. Isn't there a benefit in law of attraction or creative visualization type exercises that cause you to focus on what it is you do want? And I'm out of the spin of all that stuff. I don't even know if it's in fashion anymore. The last time I was involved was like 2005, and it was still in fashion, and people spoke about it a lot. And now I don't know. I don't keep up. I haven't got time. But there were people who were touching on the idea that, like, your emotional state in relation to the thing, the person, the experience thought of would impact whether it would actually manifest or not, right? Does it not make sense to be just as focused on a daily basis on what you do want as what you don't? I've said this before, but I've always stayed away from that, like, extra boundary break, extra next level kind of law of attraction, creative visualization, call it whatever you want thing. You know, like this, the whole online narcissism and CPTSD community, the content and the context of what the mind is consuming. Like, think of the mind as an entity, and it's consuming energy. It's consuming a certain type of food. And the diet of the mind is problems, trauma, history, bleakness, blackness. Because remember, whatever happened in the past, you know, we all talk about this shared feeling of powerlessness. If you're past focused and you're trauma focused, you are powerless, because I have no agency to affect the past. I can only affect how I feel about it now. But if something was happening now and into my future, the bleeding edge of the now when it becomes the past, the now when it becomes the past, and now as it becomes the future, that bleeding edge, now and it's the future, now and it's becoming the future, now, that's where my power is. That's where your power is. That's where your locus of control is. If I'm focused on my past and what went wrong, of course I'm going to feel hopeless and helpless and not potent in that scenario, because I'm not potent. There's nothing, I can't reach for help. I can't ask for help. I can't affect anything. There's nothing I can do because it's already gone. It is written. It's already been written. This here is that which is being writ. That there is that which is not yet written. So I can steer this ship in another direction. My challenge to you would be, for every minute and every hour you spend focused on abusive relationships, trauma, things going wrong, and that which was in the past, it might be a worthy discipline to try and match every minute and every hour with that which you do want to experience in the future, with the future becoming a now that you can vividly experience within the body. This seems to be important. This seems to be a key element of it. So if it's some freaky deaky future that's not yours, but it's some hyper idealized thing that maybe your mum wanted, or that your mum wanted for you, you'll try and bring it in and you go, ugh, that feels, I don't like, it's not good. But if you bring it towards you and you're like, no, that's me, that's me. And this is hard because most of the people watching this don't really know who they are because there's so much interference and boundary breaks. It's so you would already need to be quite au fait with being me. That's a skill, by the way. This is a little thought I had the other day. Maybe I had too much sun, but it seemed like a revelation at the time. I was sat there and I went, this was my epiphany. Maybe it's going to sound stupid. Right, get this, write it down. I have no other job in this life other than being me. Wow. I was amazed with that for about a good 20 minutes. I was like, that is fucking profound. That's my job. That's my life's purpose, is to be the me that is me, is to be the meest me that I can beingly be. That's it. But maybe it sounds like gibberish now. It meant something to me then and it means something to me now, but it might just sound like gibberish. I have no idea. I have no idea if it sounds profound or if it sounds complete lunacy. No, there is precedent for that. There is Sufi writing that is along those lines. Rumi and other Sufi poets would talk along those lines, where you just coming back to the essence of you, and you'd be like, well, I can't not be me. Well, you can. You've spent a lifetime not being you. You coming back to the essence of you actually is quite hard. Actually, it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of bravery to do it. But maybe that's the place to come from. So if it's really you, then your emotional literacy will tell you, this goal that I've set, or this thing that I'm focused on, and I bring it in and I experience it as though it's happening now, rather than fetishizing it as some sexy nipple erecting future that you never reach. Oh, you actually don't know it's now. How does it feel? If it doesn't feel good, then it's not right. But if it feels good and you're like, no, that's right for me. That's actually right for me right now. Maybe you'll feel different. What I didn't want to do with this young lady who's reached out to me is say, hey, just get back to your emotional literacy exercises. Hey, just get back to stop the emotional flashbacks, because something has occurred in the external environment which has affected her. Turbulence, my final woo example. Every flight I ever took was turbulent. Or no, that's not true. A lot of the flights I was taking, once flight 370 disappeared, I actually got really scared of flying. Like authentically, like this is a problem. This is now becoming a problem. When flight 370, remember I was living in Kuala Lumpur when that happened, and I'd flown to Hong Kong on the same airline. They were flying to Beijing 2 weeks before, and the day that I flew to Hong Kong to see my mate that I started this talking about, the guy from CNN, Richard, whatever his name is, the economics dude from CNN, he's into planes. He was flying with one of the pilots the day that I flew, and he took a picture with him. Just one of those coincidences. Flight 370 goes missing. I get scared, terrified, and then 1 in 3 of every flight I took after that was bad, to the point where people were saying to me, I'd sit next to people and they'd be like, one of the guys was like, I've been flying this flight. He was a professor in Kuala Lumpur and he had to go to another country, and he would do it once a month. He'd go and lecture. He said, I've been doing this for 6 years. I've never felt it this bumpy. That became standard. I even had, there was an experience in America where an American pilot, we were flying out of San Diego, and he said, we're for the first 20 minutes of our flight, we're going to hit the chop. That's like a nice American Airlines way of saying it's going to be bumpy. We're going to hit the chop. We're going to hit the chop. So we hit the chop for 20 minutes. And after 40 minutes, he came back on and he was exasperated but laughing. He was like, so the chop has lasted a little. It went on for an hour. It's rare for turbulence to do that. Like, it's not unheard of, but it's rare. That kept happening to me. So I fly to Thailand. The flight to Thailand, we're flying like mainly over Russia, was so bad that the pilot apologized, the air hostess apologized, and I felt after 11 hours, it wasn't really bad turbulence, but stayed turbulent for 11 hours. So that when I was walking, it felt like I was walking an earthquake because my body was still shaking, or I thought it was. So I go to see a Sankhya master. And I'm like doing it half jokingly, half not. And I'm like, I want you to fix this for me. I want you to fix this. I don't want this in my life anymore. It doesn't serve me. So I went in Bangkok to a famous Sangkyat master there. They usually do tattooing, but they are practitioners of various things. So I made an offering, fixed it. Flown loads since then, never happened to me again. What is that? Is that just affirmation bias? I've even had this conversation in my head, do I go on flights and they're actually turbulent and I just switch off and I'm just like, damn, this is a good flight? Because I'll tell you something, it might be, because I've been on flights where the pilot goes, we are going to have turbulence today. And then they switch on the fasten seatbelt signs and I'm like, okay, I think I can deal with this. Let's go. And then nothing happens. That has happened to me 5 times in the last 6 months. The fasten seatbelt signs go on and nothing happens, or you get like a the little squeaks the cupboards make, and it just goes and you're like, okay, it's not too bad, let's see what happens next. And then the lights are on for like 10-20 minutes because presumably whichever pilot was ahead of him, that's how it works. They'll just say, because who the fuck, we can't predict where it comes from, but the pilots on the same route will just talk back and go, hey, there's a little spot of turbulence there, and then nothing. What does that mean? How does that relate to everything else? How does that all fit together? These are good philosophical questions for you to ask. What is the nature of the reality that we're living in? And also, how many of you have said to me, and how often have I said, I'm sure that I'm actually attracting these kinds of people into my life. I'm sure it's become like my karmic writ, please attack here. Maybe it's psychology. Maybe we're emanating a vibe of passivity where we would permit that kind of thing. I'm sure that happens as well. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's something more to that? I can't turn this into any kind of this is not coaching. This is just philosophizing. I can't, because what am I going to do? I'm going to say, hey, I fucking figured out how reality works. Gotta put my socks on. But something like this seems to be happening. The coaching element of this that I would say is maybe try for a week to spend as much time focused on what you do want as what you don't, and see what happens. Just be like, okay, I was heartbroken, it really hurt, I was abused, I was lied to, the guy cheated on me, the girl cheated on me. What would you like to have happen? I'd like to be in a stable, loving relationship where I feel safe to be vulnerable, where I feel like there's a stability and a security there where there can be real intimacy, authentic intimacy. I'll take some questions now. I've babbled. That was meant to do 15 minutes, did half an hour. Esley says, what is turbulent to one may or may not be turbulent to another. Yes. So the psychology would be, I was in an emotional flashback and I would experience it as bad turbulence and just be hypersensitive, which you can definitely do. You can definitely wind yourself up so that it's worse. That's not what was happening. There's, I don't know. Like, if I get you to focus on it, then you're creating it. But like, I told some of you guys about it. A flight out of Denver where the pilot similarly was like, I'm really, really sorry about this. Ice clouds formed and they were really high. They were at 32,000 feet. And he said, I don't have permission to go any higher than this. So we were skimming the top of ice clouds. And I had the book by the Navy SEAL called Extreme Ownership. And I was like, I just looked at the O of ownership and just drew it again and again and again inside my head. But I was like, okay, how bad is this? And I can tell you by looking at people's heads in front of me, it was this bad. That's not a little bit of turbulence. That's like you literally couldn't have a glass of water on your tray. It would just go everywhere. If people's heads are doing this, by the way, there's different types of turbulence. It could be up, down, it could be left, right, it can shake you. It was it's like when everybody's head's doing that, that's not inside my head, that's actually happening. I'll take a question. Please write one sentence and end it with a question mark, and I'll deal with it now. Where can I find a person in America to fix my chi? I don't know, man. Do you ever try Tai Chi or Qigong? So all 200 passengers would have had the same chi? No, that's not what I'm saying. No, it wouldn't work like that. It wouldn't work like that. It might have nothing to do with that. It might just be that this is total. You were in the realms of like philosophical nonsense, and it's just pure coincidence, because coincidence can happen. Like, if you're rational and objective, you could just have a series of bad experiences. It could just be bad luck. You know, I chose to travel America. This is 2017 in October and November, and I did like 20 flights in October and November. And, you know, it gets cold, the weather changes, you're flying over Texas, and it can be a bit funky over Texas. You're flying over, you know, it could just be that. But no, I mean, it would be ridiculous to say all 200 passengers have the same chi. I'm not trying to make a direct, like a linear, rigid, dogmatic, because that would be absurd. You know what happens when people start thinking like that? And it's really sad, because this happens in the real world. This issue of karma. If you take it non-poetically and rigidly, what you end up with is what you have in Thailand, where they actually believe that people who have physical disabilities or physical disfigurements, or when bad things happen to people, that's bad karma. And it has meant, not now, not as much in modern Thailand, but in older Thailand, and probably still out in the sticks, people with disabilities are generally treated quite badly. And that's because of like this rigid, dogmatic X plus Y equals Z. You must have done something in a bad life, so fuck you now. Don't try and do that. It definitely won't work. Can we really deconstruct the socio-cultural self? Socio-cultural. I like it. And reach our true self. Is there a true self we can go back to? A pure self? Damn, there's some high-level questions up in here today. I think philosophers have been trying to answer that one for a long time. Can we really deconstruct the socio-cultural self and reach our true self? Yes, but I wouldn't want to mystify the idea of a true self. Like, if you had no socio-cultural training whatsoever, then you'd say, well, it's only socio-cultural elements that stop you from being your true self. You would not be able to speak, and you would not function very well. You know, language is a bastard, society is a bastard, culture is a bastard, but the only reason you're not rocking and grunting and flinging your own poo at enemies right now is because of language and social and certain society and culture. Like if you were not, we have examples of this where people have somehow survived since childhood in the wilderness. You don't come out of that in like some Zen state. You come out of it like an animal. You're a grunting, squawking animal who has no social boundaries whatsoever. So let's not create this mystical idea of what a true self is. What I suspect is, and this is like, you've got to try and answer philosophically, and I can't answer it for you because I don't have the answer. What is a human? What is a human? And what is our purpose in life? What are we here for? These are the like really deep questions that you've got to try and answer. And I don't have those answers. I have my ideas, I have my theories, I have my way of life, but I'll do a little woo video every once in a while, but I won't go further than that because it's not fair. It's like, that would then really be a self-indulgence. I have a job to do here, which is to help people who are traumatized. If I go too far into the woo, it just becomes like, it just gets confusing. So can you have the societal influences deconstructed? Yeah, you can, but I don't know at what point. At some point that would be useful, and then if you kept going with it, maybe it would be useless or actually malignant. It would be harmful. It would be useful to the point that you can choose. So if we stripped it away, you strip it away by like the way people always have. Why do monks and nuns fuck off out of society and go to monasteries and nunneries? Because that's the easy path. It's way easier to get the work done if you're away from the material world and you're away from just quotidian bullshit life. In all of our stories of prophets and gurus and mystics, they will frequently disappear from the town, disappear from the city, the populace, the people, and they'll go off into the wilderness on their own. They'll go and sit in a cave, or they'll go and sit up a mountain, or they'll go and sit in the forest. There are systems of personal development in the Japanese tradition where you must do that. I think in traditional Japanese ninjutsu, you actually have to. You're supposed to have a period of your life, and they have a name for it, I can't remember right now, where you go off into the forest on your own. So to the extent that you get choice about which parts of language, society, and culture you take on, that would be useful and powerful. Beyond that, you might just be a grunting, squawking, poop flinging animal. No one has the answers, says Elaine. Woo, you're moving. I will stop you. No one has the answers, says Elaine. Think you have to figure it out yourself. Maybe that is the point, figuring it all out. One of the things that I would encourage you all to do, and I've said this in other videos, but I'll say it again now, with this whole abusive relationship, trauma, CPTSD thing, I'm going to be saying a lot more from now on. You do need to develop your own personal philosophy. You do need to develop your own moral philosophy. You do need to sort out what your values are. You are, as a human being, required to answer questions like, what is the right way to live? How should a good human live? What is good? What is evil? You can't just, if you try and go through life without answering these questions, or at least trying to talk about them and maybe wrap your head around it, you're very vulnerable, not just to abusive types, but to marketing, to propaganda, to advertising, to political campaigns, because you've got no boundaries, basically. You've got no infrastructure there that protects you. You need a moral philosophy. You've got to develop one. And if you want to heal faster, develop a moral philosophy. If you want to protect yourself in the future, develop a moral philosophy. Start answering the questions. Just journal it. You don't need to get it right. Just try. What is good? What is evil? What is right? What is wrong? How should a human being try to live? And you need to come up with some kind of philosophy of life, so you can go, okay, this is what I'm going to do, because this is what I think a human should do. I believe a human should contribute, so I contribute. I try to contribute. When you go, oh, that's so selfless. I'm like, no, I know from psychology and from philosophy that I will feel better. I will feel calmer. I will feel more connected and more and part of a tribe, even if it's electronic or whatever it is. If I am offering value, I will feel better. So there's an entirely selfish element to it where I'm like, well, this works for me. to be able to offer something to other people. It's an important thing to be able to do. Kawa says, how do you deal with feeling like you'll never find love if you're a young person? I don't know that it makes a massive amount of difference whether you're young or old, but a lot of people do feel like there is this feeling like I will never find love. So back to the moral philosophy. What is love? What does finding love mean? What does being in a loving relationship mean? Write it down. Write your answers down. Try it for 15 minutes for 7 days. Just scratch down the first thing that comes into your head in really shit handwriting, really imperfectly. I think love is, and then the next day you go, I'm not sure if I agree with what I wrote yesterday. I have a better idea. I think love is, and love is not, What is finding love? What is that? Is that my idea, or is that like a cultural idea? What is finding love? Where am I trying to externally find love? Do I need to internally find love before I can externally find love? Philosophical questions, well worth asking and well worth trying to answer. Have you heard of the cognitive theoretic model of the universe? I haven't, Abby, no. Sounds interesting though. Mitt says, can NPD form a long-term relationship with another cluster B personal disorder people? Yes, and frequently do. I have a suspicion that we live in a reality tunnel of going, oh, it's a binary, like I'm a codependent fawning echo, and here's the borderline psychopath narcissist, and that's what they do. Like, they're vampires who just suck the blood of their victims. My pet theory, and I have nothing to back this up, but just observation and things I've seen and how I understand the cluster B personality disorder spectrum to work, is actually most of them are with cluster Bs. So the normal relationship is cluster B with cluster B. And what we have is quite rare. We are shocked, indignant, traumatized, desperately seeking for answers online. So we're quite loud, we're quite like strong with it. But the vast majority of people never ask, because they're in their own cluster B reality tunnel. They're with somebody else who's also cluster B. Some days I'm winning, some days she's winning. I eat her, she eats me. We switch roles, we go back again. Everything she does to me that's abusive, I reinterpret as something else, because, you know, I don't have a high functioning reality test. I don't have a proper ego at all. I just have a monstrously large superego that's going, she's wrong, she's wrong, she's wrong. And I think people stay in relationships like this for years and years and years and years and years. Two cluster Bs together. I think the cluster B with the codependent is less frequent, and probably has less durability, because the codependent, I'm just going to use this, I know it's wrong, I've said it's wrong, we all know it's not correct to say codependent. The echo to the narcissist gets exhausted. If a borderline or a narcissist get together, they could go for decades. They just die narcissists together, just fighting, just hating each other. You know, like the image I used to use a lot was Gandalf and the Balrog fighting and cursing and spitting and punching and kicking and doing spells on each other as they tumble downward for days on end. And the Lord of the Rings, that was the story, when Gandalf fought the Balrog. They fell for a very, very long time and fought each other together, but they were locked in an embrace as they did it. In fact, I think that's the big boundary break for Gandalf, isn't it? Doesn't he go from being Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White after he survives his... Get away from me, little person. After he survives his task, his battle, his initiation, is he changes after that. I think that's the normal format. So yeah, absolutely, cluster Bs are together all the time. That's probably more frequent than codependence. We live in a reality tunnel where we're like, no, it's cluster Bs with codependence, because that's our localized niche perspective, is that's where we're coming from. So we're like, that's what the world is. And I don't think so. But it could just be my dumb pet theory. Mike Doom says, all that is defined in the commandments, Mr. Grannon. Which commandments are you talking about? Who's commanded you? You have to let me in on that one. If two people from Oklahoma get married, are they still brother and sister? Says Magic Sufi. Thank you for insulting people from Oklahoma. Can I reverse cluster B traits in myself? I mean, yes, absolutely. If you're willing to start with the reducing the emotional flashbacks, if you see like cluster B patterns of behavior in yourself, then work the emotional flashbacks. Seek to become more emotionally literate. As your emotional flashbacks reduce, you might not feel a compulsion to predate on others as much. As you develop your emotional literacy, so your boundaries will get stronger, and you realize you don't need to do that, because what you're probably doing, I hypothesize, if you see cluster B traits in yourself, is you're recruiting other human beings to feel your feelings for you, or to perform other important ego functions for you, because your ego doesn't work. So you're like, oh, I need to feel, I can't get unless I take this and go, now I feel, good, that's where I want it to be. So emotional literacy would help, and develop a moral philosophy, and then work within that moral philosophy. Just go, this is right, this is wrong. From a cluster B point of view, the moral philosophy will be, what will serve me the best in the long term? If you live as a selfish asshole who abuses people, the prognosis is not good. You don't want to be in the tail end of your life, no mates, a stream of broken relationships and broken friendships and just dreadful karma behind you, and nothing to look forward to. I mean, other people have done articles and video posts on the the aging narcissist. It's a really, really depressing state to let yourself get into. So stop it now. It would suit your interests better to develop a more authentic self, so you can enjoy life more. It feels way better if you're more authentic, you're more emotionally literate. If you reduce the emotional flashbacks, all that anxiety you feel that makes you feel compelled to predate upon people will just go away. It'll just completely disappear, and that would be a good thing for you. So I wish you all the best with that. Can you fix your chi without going to a healer? Your chi naturally fixes itself. Sleep is good. Take care of yourself. Have good, long, unbroken sleeps. And if you struggle to do that, then take any and all action to make sure that you can sleep for an unbroken, undisturbed 7 to 8 hours. And all of that will be fixed naturally. Qigong is great. Tai Chi is great. But it's not really necessary. Your Qi is natural. We function just fine in our natural states when we're doing what we're naturally evolved to do, when we're communicating with people, when we're bonding with people intellectually, emotionally, physically, in the way that we're designed to do. It's all good. When it's unnatural, when it's interference, when it's boundary breaks, that's when the chi gets disrupted, and that's when you don't feel good. Splendilicious said, one of the popular phrases for law of attraction is, for everyone's higher good. To use this when setting intentions will produce better outcomes. Louise L. Hay always used to say that. The Shakti Gawain book said it. There are different law of attraction people. Yeah, it should always be. It was something like either this or something better than this that serves my highest good and the highest good of everyone concerned. I think that's Louise L. You're sort of writing the software to sort of pump out into the ether, bit like writing a spell. You want to be really careful. It's like a legally binding contract. You want to make sure that you get all the appendices correct. Like you don't want to say, I'd love to be rich and famous, and then you become rich and famous because you fall on train tracks and get cut in half and survive, and you get like a huge payout for it, and everybody that would really suck. So but that tends to be the way I think the modern Western world focuses on stuff. It's like that. It's like focus on the thing as distinct from all the other things. So you can just have a little bit of it. And it's like, well, no, because it's not a two-dimensional reality. It's a multi-dimensional reality. So I can't just have a little bit of it. I don't get to experience a totally new set of circumstances and not change at all, and not lose part of who I was and become something more in order to experience that. So Louise L. Hay filtered all that down to touching the throat chakra and saying, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to change. But I'm willing to change because I'm willing to lose parts of who I was. Some of the things I'm still attached to, they're like toys from childhood. They're ideas that I've cherished and I love them so much. And then there's stuff I need to learn, the skills I've got to develop, the strengths I've got to develop in order to experience that which I would want to experience. I've got to be willing to change. You can't just show up and be all rigid and entitled and like, no, just do it to me, just give it to me. That's not going to work. That looked like a good question and I scrolled past it. Can you put a frozen pizza under the grill if the main oven is broken? I'm not a frozen pizza person. I don't know what that would do. I have a suspicion from my student days that what happens is that you just get a soggy, dirty mess and it will be burnt on the top and still be cold in the crust. So I think I'm going to go with no for that one. But thanks for your question, Osama Uladzahra. I would need some practice with that name. You would need to train me how to say it. Okay, I'm going to read one more question and then I'm going to go and eat some food, read a book and get ready for bed. Read books. Everybody stop using your phone, start reading books. It's fucking great. This year, we're in the 7th month. I checked it the other day on my Kindle. I've gone through 14 books. It's great. Makes life better. Read books. There's some life coaching advice for you. Mike Doom says, Mr. Grannon, why do you keep saying my name? It's annoying and it's unnecessary. I was referring to the biblical commandments of Moses. I don't think Moses wrote them, mate. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I'm 99% certain that it wasn't Moses that wrote them. Anyway, moving on. Can I get rid of a cluster of symptoms like paranoid ideation constantly and ideas of reference? Similar to the advice that I gave the other lady before, reduce the emotional flashbacks, work on your emotional literacy, do develop some kind of a moral philosophy. The paranoid ideation is an emotional flashback. Ideas of reference are rooted in emotional flashbacks. It's anxiety. And you go, well, but it's selfish and grandiose. Yes, of course. I mean, NPD type behaviors, borderline type behaviors, struggling with ideas of reference are a manifestation of CPTSD. It's an infantile trauma-based response. Ideas of reference, everybody's talking about me. This is all about me all the time. I would say just reduce the emotional flashbacks. And when I say develop a moral philosophy, maybe become more philosophical generally. Just go, okay, this seems to be all about me. Okay, let's be Socratic. What evidence have I got that proves that that is true? Stack it. Now let's expend just as much energy in saying, what evidence do I have that this is totally false? And stack that. Just do the exercise and look at them both. And you know what I'm saying? Like, be philosophical with yourself, because that increases neuroplasticity, reduces the rigidity of the black and white thinking, which I think would help. What are the last books you read? Which do you recommend? They're not all hyper intellectual. I read Warwolf, which is a medieval book about the 100 Years' War in Germany, which is really, really good. Highly recommend it. Steppenwolf was great. There was a book about wolves by a Hungarian writer whose name escapes me right now, but that was great. Cormac McCarthy's book, The Road, which is one of the best books I've ever read in my life. Ishmael, which was interesting. I liked it. And then, I tried to get through Society of the Spectacle. I didn't read it cover to cover, but I read it in chunks and found it interesting. God, there's a classic of psychiatry called Something of the Mind, and it's to do with psychopathy. And it's written in the 1950s, and it just shows you how we really haven't advanced that much in our understanding of what psychopathy is and isn't. In the field of psychiatry and psychology, there isn't like a consensus on it. And it's a funny book that's well written. If I can remember that name, I'll write it out for you. But I've been reading fantasy books as well, because I was really disappointed with Game of Thrones. I've always loved fantasy books. So I read the, oh, bloody hell. Well, I'm reading The Name of the Wind right now, which is a good fantasy book if you like it. The first 3 chapters are a bit stodgy, but then it gets into its flow and it's really good. And oh, bloody hell, what's her name? She's an American author. Her name is Robin, and she wrote a series of books where a boy becomes bonded psychologically with a wolf. Help me out, guys. God, I can't remember. Where are the videos that started with the audios, please? I don't know what that's a reference to. You might like the movie The Wind in the Lion. The Wind in the Lion. The lion has indigestion. Robin Hobb, thank you so much for that. It is Robin Hobb. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's the Assassins something, and it's a trilogy, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Ancient Lantern, our trusty moderator, says, I'm reading Breakfast of Champions from Kurt Vonnegut and Bird by Bird from Anne Lamott, and Craig Ferguson's new book too. Awesome. Very good. ABC XYZ says, why is it so hot in your room? Because it's Ibiza, and it's July, and it's 34 degrees C outside. And I have to turn the fan off, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to hear me. It would just go, and that would drive you mad. Herman Hess, Damien, you said it. I'll get it when I get my new Kindle. I'll get that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you.